Our next session is CA Dayanand Sir. I now invite Sridhar to introduce our next speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. CA Dayanand K, GST and indirect tax SME for RWAs. CA Dayanand K, BCom FCA CPA, is an experienced chartered accountant and US qualified certified public accountant with over 20 years of specialization in indirect taxes and international financial supporting, serving as the indirect tax and US GAAP subject matter expert. He conducts teaching sessions on GST, customs, exercise, service tax, Karnataka VAT, STPI regulations, and the alignment of Indian financial records with US GAAP, delivering balanced education-oriented guidance that support informed decision making by RWAs. We welcome you, sir.
Good afternoon, all of you. My session is about GST. How many of you are registered and paying GST? Okay, quite good. Because if you are not registered, not paying GST as a RWA, then we will say that it's not applicable to us. So at least I'm saying that quite a few have been registered and paying the taxes. I'm very sure that contentment, again, the issue will come here. So people are not contented with the payment of the tax. So now how to get out of this tax is the people will be thinking that how to get out of the tax GST. The issue of the dispute, the demand, the tax on this RWA is going for more than now 20 years. When the service tax was introduced, the tax was there. Introduced on tax was introduced to RWA, but matter went up to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that no tax, no demand can be made. The RWA is not at all liable for the service tax because it is a concept of mutuality. But again and again, the government is coming by way of amendment to the provisions. So whatever the Supreme Court said that this is the reason for which the RWA is not liable for the taxes. Again, the government will see that how to tweak the provisions of the law. And they come out with the amendment and say that, look, this is amendment, I am making it. Now you are liable again for the services which the RWA provides to its members. So with this small brief, so let us go to the this topics and explain what was the this provision we had under the service tax regime and what is the tax provisions we have under in the GST regime. Recently, the GST law, the supply meaning has been amended with the retrospectively 1/7/2020, 1/7/2017. The amendment came into effect from 1/1/2022, but made it as a retrospectively from 1/7/2017. It is like our section 17(5)(d). I think you must be all knowing about the Safari Retreat case. The amendment they made to the clause D in the month of, there's a 1st October 2025. With the retrospective effect, there's an amendment, the notification is dated now 1/10/2025, but effective date of notification is 1/7/2017. Like this kind of an amendment to the section 1AA has been made with the retrospective amendment. What is this amendment? It reads like this: the activities or the transactions by a person other than an individual to its members or constituents or vice versa for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration. Very interesting, this one. Very interesting things. So this definition is not going to be as it is here. So this definition, again, the Supreme Court will struck down saying that this is unconstitutional because some of the wordings which they have used here, the activities and the transactions, from where they brought these words, it is not there in the GST law. So how the taxes can be levied on the activities and transactions, Under the GST, you can levy the tax only on the goods or the services and not on the activities. Activities we had that the tax in case of the service tax regime, in case of where we had a negative list of activities where the tax was on the activities and not on the supply of services. But under the GST, the constitutional amendments have been made, so wherein the taxes are on the goods and services and not on the activities. So that is why, again, whatever the amendment they proposed to overcome the Supreme Court judgment in the case of the Union of the State of West Bengal versus Calcutta Club Limited. So to overcome the decision of the Supreme Court, so this amendment has been made. But this may not be remain as it is. So we have to wait and watch. I think within next 1 month or 1.5 months, we are expecting a good decision about this also. So now let us see what's the explanation they have given. For the purpose of this clause, it says that, so whatever the outcome of the judgment, whatever the rulings of the courts of the Supreme Court, so any authority, the person and its members or constituents shall be deemed to be the two separate persons. So why this amendment? Why have they done like this? Because the Supreme Court over and again, many cases, many decisions, right from 1957, I think in the income tax, in the previous session, we have seen that the tax authorities wanted to levy the income tax on this RWA. But the concept of the mutuality was prevailing from when? For the more than now 75 years. So based on the concept of mutuality, no tax, the income tax should be paid. Similarly, under the GST or the service tax also, tax should not be imposed on the concept of the mutuality. But to overcome the concept of the mutuality, they are bringing the words like the persons and its members or the constituents. Suppose now, so we are forming the association as under the deed of resolution, or as under the Registration Act, or under the Societies Act, or under the Limited Companies Act as a company. So any of the formation of the mode of formations. So they are instead of using the members or the members, they are using the word constituents, so that it takes care of any mode of your formation, any mode of formations. So they are bringing a new word called constituents. Any transaction between the member and its constituent, irrespective of the outcome of any judgment, should be considered as a supply. Should be considered as supply. So this is the amendment they have made effective from 1/7/2017, but retrospective amendment they brought it on 1/1/2022. Now, what was the provision under the service tax? Because the GST is a combination of VAT and the service tax. Whatever the provisions we had under the service tax, as well as the law, as well as the VAT, as well as the central excise, so it's all combined and then picked up here and some of the provisions and made a new law. It's a GST law, they made it. So we had this clause under the service tax also. Explanation 3 under the charging provision was there. For the purpose of this chapter, an unincorporated association or a body of persons, as the case may be, and a member thereof shall be treated as a distinct persons. So this provision was there under the service tax, just to beat the concept of the mutuality. So in every judgment, right from the Young Man's India, India associations, thereafter that many judgments of the High Courts and Supreme Courts have given that concept of mutuality right from the decision from the even English courts. They have borrowed this concept of the mutuality from the English courts also. They said that if it is a mutuality concept, then there are no taxes. For example, now 10 family people or 10 friends join together and they wanted to organize a trip. So for each of them, then you contribute to 2 lakh rupees. So 20 lakh rupees comes to one person's account. So then the income tax will notice saying that you got 20 lakh rupees income. Similarly, GST will say that you got 20 lakh rupees income, pay the taxes. So the Supreme Court said that's all nothing but a mutuality. It's for the common objective, common purposes. People are joined together and collecting some money, and such money will not get the character of a income. So that is why there is no income. Similarly, there should not be any taxes. So this provision we had under the service tax also. So any transaction between the unincorporated association or a body of persons with the member of that association is not a to be treated as a separate persons. They should be treated as a separate person, so that once you treat them as a separate persons, any transaction between them can be considered as a supply or supply of goods or the supply of services. What is the basic requirement to levy the taxes? Under the GST, there must be a basic requirement that there should be two persons to consider anything as a supply and supply of goods or supply services, so that it will attract GST. So the basic requirement of any in the GST law is that there must be minimum two persons, and there must be a supply, and that supply should be for a consideration, and such supply should be done in the course or furtherance of the business. Very important aspect. So if you look at if you just recollect my previous slide, wherein the amendment of the section 7(1)AA, wherein you don't see that one, the requirement of the business consideration, all those things are not there. It's not there. So if you, I'll just go back and see this one. If you look at the activities or transactions by a person other than individual to its members or constituents, or vice versa for cash, deferred payment, or the other valuable consideration, the conspicuous word of the business and in the course or furtherance of the business is not there here. So then, whether when we go for the taxation of the RWA, whether the basic tenet of the law, wherein it requires two persons, that fulfills there. If the deemed definition of when we consider the association and the persons are different, if we consider that, then the basic requirement of two persons have been fulfilled. Then valid consideration, yes, it says a consideration. Then what about this? Should be in the normal course or furtherance of the business. Is it fulfilling that requirement? Again, we go back to the Supreme Court judgments. Young Indian Owners Associations, latest one, Calcutta Club Limited, wherein it said that it's a mutuality concept. So once it is a mutuality concept, where is the basic requirement of furtherance of the business and in the course of the business? In any law, when we read that the main requirement of the section 7(1)A, it requires, it should be, the supply should be in the course or furtherance of the business. So even for other clauses also, 1A, 11A, B, C, for all the clauses, anything to be taxed as a supply, it should be in the course of or furtherance of the business. So to tax the associations also, RWA also, it should be in the course of the business. So I'm sure the Supreme Court, again this amendment, they will look at from this angle also, that whether this is fulfilling. So whether whatever the judgments so far they said that, so it's not in the course of business, it's a mutuality concept. Again, those things will be tested here by challenging the these provisions. So now let's see what is the meaning of the business. Business is very widely defined under the GST Act. So I will not explain all. The important is here the clause E. I'm not sure whether you will be able to see it, or I will read for your convenience. E means provision by any business includes provision by a club, association, society, or any other such body for a subscription or any other consideration of the facilities or benefits to its members. So government has taken care of it. Government has taken care of the requirement of the business, they have taken care of it. But when you come to the definition under 7(1)AA, wherein they have not brought this meaning of the business, but as a business, they have included within the provisions of section 217, they have included any transaction between the members and associations falls within the meaning of business. Now, once they introduce the section 7(1)AA, a corresponding change they have made, because in the Supreme Court judgment, they found out one lacuna in the GST law. They said that, okay, if you want to levy the tax on this RWA, you take the tax only on the goods. If the RWA supplies the goods, you take the tax. But there is no tax on the services. As all of you know that RWA provides only services. There is no goods. So because the schedule 2 to the GST Act, it says that supply of goods, the following shall be treated as a supply of goods, namely supply of goods by any unincorporated association or body of persons to a member thereof for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration. What is this Schedule 2? So section 7 says that anything, some of the transactions, the law defines itself. Okay, this transaction should be treated as a service. This transaction should be treated as a supply of goods. So you have no discretion. For example, construction services, I have no discretion. The law itself has defined construction service means it is a service. If you go and have the food in the restaurant, so it is defined already that it is a service. I cannot treat it as a supply of goods. Similarly, under clause 7 of the second schedule, so where the government has defined that if the RWA or the associations supply the goods, it should be treated as supply of the goods. But they have not considered or they have not covered that what happens about the services. Now, in the verge of the in the court, when the matter was taken up, the argument was made that if at all you are considering the levy, it should be only limited to the goods and not to the services. This is on over and above the arguing that this is not a supply because it is only a mutuality concept. Even if I am losing the case, this is notwithstanding that. So I am taking the multiple grounds wherein, so I am saying that finally if you are levying the taxes, it should be limited to the goods because of the Schedule 7. Now after seeing this argument and after incorporating the 7(1)AA, then the law has deleted this clause itself with effect from 1/1/2022. This clause has been deleted with the retrospective effect. Is it required to show the supply in the course or furtherance of the business? Already I have explained this one. So if it is not in the course of furtherance or not in the course of furtherance of the business, whether the tax can be levied. Because of the basic tenet of the 7(1)A, that is 7 is that anything to be taxed under the GST that such a supply should be in the course or furtherance of the business. So even for the RWAs also, to tax the transaction between the association and the members, then the association should be into the business. Now if you form that association as a non-profitable entity, in such cases, how that takes care of the requirement of the business? Though the definition of the business includes any transaction between the members and the association is called as a business. So these aspects have to be addressed by the Supreme Court. What is the legal issues after the post amendment to section 7(1)AA? Article 366(12)A says that goods and service tax means any tax on the supply of goods or services or both, except on the alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Now if you recollect the slide where it says that transactions or the activities, where the Constitution says about this 366(12)A, the power to the government to levy the tax on the supply of the goods or services or both. And there is no power under the Constitution to levy the tax on the activities or the transactions. So this is where the lacuna, this is where the problem in the amendment to the section 7(1)AA. So with this, I hope that again the Supreme Court will struck down that the provisions, whatever the 7(1)AA they made. Hope that the lawyers will they will explain whether our understanding is correct. Then next to the Article 246, power to make the laws. Under Article 246, the central government has got the power. Equally, state also has got the power to make the rules and the provisions, the taxing provisions in respect of the supply of goods or services. They don't have the power to make the laws relating to the activities of the transactions. So we don't know, it's all new words for us. What do you mean by activities? What is the meaning of supply of activity means? What is the meaning of supply of transactions means? It is very foreign words for us, we don't know. So that is why that this 7(1)AA should be struck down. Article 366(29)A, so when the 46th amendment they made, so wherein the tax on sale or purchase of the goods as including a tax on the supply of goods by an unincorporated association or body of persons. Even after the Article 366 12A introduced when the GST came in, as well as the Article 246 came in, but still this 366 29A continues. Even today we have. So this clause contains the transaction with these associations, members. But we don't have in other clauses, we don't have. So what is this meaning of service? Because why I'm bringing this section 102, the definition of the service, just to bring the word transaction is here. Service means anything other than goods, money and securities, but includes activities relating to the use of the money. So under 71AA, they brought the word activities or the transactions, but that should be related to the goods or the services. But the activities word they used under 102 while defining the services, it only relates to the activities relating to the money and not activities relating to the supply of goods or services. So that is why the 71AA, again it has got the problems. So activities word in the whole GST Act, so we are seeing only under the section 2102 where the service definition is there. So only this contains about the word activities, but it only restricts to the activities relating to the cash. Suppose it's an exchange of money. So dollar to this very foreign currency or local currency, wherein somebody charges some transaction amount, for that it comes within that. But otherwise, the more meaning to these words cannot be given. Now one more, the term, all the Supreme Court judgment says that the relationship between the members and the RWA is it's one another same only. There is no two different persons. So that's what the Supreme Court's conclusions in all the cases. The members and the associations are one another same only. Whether it may be a company, it may be a society, it may be any other the entity, or it may be associations, both the parties should be treated or should be looked as a one person only. But the GST law has defined the definition of the persons. So in that the term person includes individuals also, then an association of persons or body of individuals, whether incorporated or not in India or outside India. So the law has made every requirement, like definition of the person it includes, definition of the business it includes, supply they have brought in, but they have still made some kind of errors in bringing a new words, new levy, and without addressing the mutuality of the concept. When the Supreme Court from 1950, I think, so they were saying that in case of the associations, it is a concept of mutuality. Over a period of 75 years, when the same thing the Supreme Court says, whether the amendment can be done to the statutes. I think in the case of the R.C. Mittal, the Supreme Court says that when it continuously, say around 50 years, decades, when the Supreme Court says that it is because there is such provisions are not there, it is a mutuality concept, and for such kind of judgment, an amendment to the statutes cannot be done. Then it requires an amendment to the Constitution itself. So they cannot tweak the law by introducing this section 71AA like that. So it requires somewhere amendment to the Constitution. So that's what the Supreme Court says. So this is how that in the medical associations of the Kerala cases, the argument has been done. Whether mutuality concept will prevail over the meaning of supply is the next question. So club cannot be treated as a separate legal entity of the nature of a limited company carrying on business. So this is as per the Mumbai High Court in the case of Cricket Club of India Limited. So wherein the Mumbai High Court said that, so club cannot be treated, this is after Supreme Court, subsequently it went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court also upheld that club cannot be treated as a separate legal entity of the nature of a limited company carrying on the business. Even though it's a limited company, so we cannot treat the company, so because of the company is carrying on a business, so this cannot be held as a separate person. Mutuality concept cannot be taken away from because of the entity is a company. State of West Bengal versus Calcutta Club Limited, this is a latest one, 2019, Supreme Court judgment, emphatically held that principles of mutuality continued even after the 46th Amendment. Why I am just referring to the 46th Amendment, in the previous slide you have seen the Article 366(29)(a), wherein the taxing the this deemed supplies, wherein the association of persons also they have brought in. Even despite of that, the 366(29)(a) amendment, they said that in the case of Calcutta Club Limited, the mutuality of concept cannot be removed. So no service between the club and its members, whether incorporated or not. Ranchi Club, Ranchi Club is a Jharkhand High Court judgment. So no service between the club and its members. Like this, we have enough judgments, not one or two, at least around 25, minimum 25 judgments we have. So regarding the registration of the associations, so whether registration is a must, we have already discussed enough in the previous session. So and also kinds of registration also, we have discussed maybe under the Registration Act or under the Karnataka Association Act or the Deed of Registration or under the Companies Act or the Societies Act. So each state has got different its own statutes under which the people register, irrespective of the registrations. The transaction between the members and the entity will be considered as a mutuality, it's a transaction between the same persons. So no tax. Then types of collection by the association from the members. So there will be three types of collections. One will be towards the capital expenditures or the future expenditures which the association will collect from the members. Secondly, monthly or the periodical collections. Thirdly, third collections will be on a specific one. Suppose some specific expenses are there, the specific collections will be there. Now all these cases, which will be the time of supply? Because in many cases I see that one, people who doesn't pay, they will not raise the invoice. People who pay, for them the invoice will be raised. So there is no uniformity saying that, even though the bylaws will say that every month, first or the end of the month, the invoice have to be raised for the collections, or once in a periodical, once in a quarterly. But there is no such, strictly that the bylaws have been followed. So in such cases, the GST will come into picture. If you are not complying the time of supply as per your bylaws, then the time of supply will be decided by the GST also. So you please ensure that, so whatever the time of supply you have in your bylaws, so kindly adhere to that. What is this meaning of consideration? Because in the it may be cash, deferred payment, or any other valuable consideration. That's what the section 7(1) says that. So for us, it's important to understand what is consideration, because this slide is connected to the previous slide. You people will say that the capital contribution, whatever I have paid, it is not a contribution, it is not revenue of the association at all, because this money have to be kept, or a sinking fund or any other fund. This money has to be set aside, or it has to be kept in the bank for the future expenditures. So when the money is given for the future expenditures, whether the GST can be demanded. So for this purpose, we have to understand the meaning of the consideration. So consideration is very widely defined, but I will, because of the limitation of time, I will only say that, I will only read the last proviso. Provided that a deposit given in respect of the supply of goods or the services, or both, shall not be considered as a payment made for such supply unless the supplier applies such deposit as consideration for the said supply. So if the amount given is a deposit, what do you mean by deposit? It should be a refundable deposit. If it is not a refundable deposit, but it is a deposit for the future expenditure, which I have to keep it in the bank as per the bylaws, so I have to secure, I have to either invest in the mutual fund or the bank. So unless it is a refundable, then the GST law will not give the concession to you. So that on that such money also you have to pay. It may be sinking fund, it may be for any funds. As long as that money is not refundable, you have to pay the tax on that. So many advance rulings are there. We have exceptional, one or two exception advance rulings also there, wherein they said that the deposit, if you take a sinking fund, if you deposit, if you take it, so there is no taxes. But I don't agree, because so this is subject to the levy. So once a supply is passed, we consider, okay, it's a supply. So we are contented, we want to do a contentment now. So government also, either the government should be contented or the association should be contented. If the government is now contented, they will at least, okay, they will remove altogether this tax on this RWA. If the association is contented, then we will not go to the Supreme Court. Again and again we will not go, because for the last 20 years we are reaching the doors of Supreme Court. So if you collect any deposits, but if it is not a refundable deposit, then on that also GST is payable. And of course, this is if the association registered and if the turnover is more than 20 lakhs, only in such cases arises, or otherwise there is no tax on the amount collected. So exemption. So we have an exemption. The government is not charging the tax from the rupee one. So of course the government wanted to safeguard this interest of the individual owners. So there is an exemption available for us. So the exemption entry is 12, entry number 77 in the 12 of 2017 notification. I will read the first as well as the last, because in between the two, two paras of the middle, that's not applicable to RWA. Service by an unincorporated body or a non-profit entity registered under any law for the time being in force to its own members by way of reimbursement of charges or share of contribution. C. Up to an amount of 7,500 rupees per month per member for sourcing of goods or services from a third person for the common use of its members in a housing society or residential complex. Lot of care should be given while reading this exemption. The exemption is not given to all. If you look at the first line there, unincorporated body or a non-profit entity. Now suppose if you make it as a society, is it a non-profit entity? If you form it as a company, limited company, is it a non-profit entity? If you form it as an association of persons, is it a non-profit entity? So exemption is given, either it is it should be an unincorporated body or a non-profit entity, and not for all. So we have to be careful. After reading this notifications, so what type of association we should form it, we should be careful about it. Now the exemption is only up to an amount of 7,500 rupees per month per member for sourcing the goods or the services for the benefit of its members. If the amount is more than 7,500 rupees per member per month, then the tax will come. It's only for sourcing of the goods or sourcing for services. Sourcing. It is not for providing. So if the association itself provides the services, then it is not coming under this. So they have to source the goods or the services from the third parties, from the outsiders. Suppose now, you tomorrow put up a plant, okay, you put up a plant, and then the power is generated out of that solar plant you put up. And then the solar power is used it, and for that I recover some amount from my members. Whether that can be considered as a sourcing of the goods or sourcing of services. It is a generation, it's a self-generated. So the department can say that this is not sourced. Maybe so members will have some different view about it, but so it is a means of production. It is a means of production of the goods. Electricity is also always a goods, okay? Electricity is a goods. So there is a HSN classification is there. So you are procuring the panels and putting up the plant, and the plant generates, and for that purpose the association undertakes the maintenance, supervisions, everything. So if you sell this power, what the electricity companies will say, you are manufacturing power, you are selling the power. Tomorrow you assume that there is a central excise duty or there is a taxes for the electricity generated by that. Can you say that this is a sourced good, sourced electricity? No, because as per the provisions, you have to first you are supplied to the grid, and from the grid you source back that power. So it means that I generate the power. So in such cases, if there is any charges charged to the members by the association, can I claim the exemption under this? So it's a debatable again. because the wordings are very much limited. The Supreme Court judgment says that whenever you interpret the provisions on the exemption notification, you should read the exemption notification in a strict manner. Once you fulfill the conditions of the exemption notification, basic requirement of the exemptions, thereafter that you can read it liberally. If there is any procedural requirement of fulfilling that notification, this can be read it liberally. But as per the basic conditions are there, that should be fulfilled very strictly. So, requirements of this exemption notification I already explained. It should be an unincorporated body, a non-profit entity. It should be registered under any law. Recovery will be towards a contribution or reimbursement of the charges only. Such a contribution should be for the sourcing of goods or services, and such a sourcing should be for the common use of its members. Common use of its members. Even the revenue authorities will fight this. He will say that you are procuring all these services and your entire building is used by the tenants. So where is the question of the members are using these services? So fine reading of the notification. So it can happen like that also. If the entire building is now used by the tenants, and then I am saying here such a sourcing should be for the common use of the members. So tenant is not a member. In such cases, how the exemption should be given? Then it should be by a housing society or residential complex. Here the issue arises. What do you mean by housing society? And or what do you mean by housing residential complex? Let's see the next slide. The meaning of residential complex means any complex comprising of a building or buildings having more than one single residential unit. I ask as the audience, what do you mean by a complex comprising of a building or buildings? My simple understanding is that there must be a complex. Within the complex, the residential units will be there. So a area can have a single building, but inside the building, number of units will be there. Or area will have a block A, block B, block C, block C. That is why that. So having more than the building or buildings, but it should have more than one single residential unit. What is the meaning of single residential unit they have defined here? Single residential unit means a residential unit should fulfill for having all the facilities to take care of a one family. Means a self-contained residential unit which is designed for use wholly or principally for the residential purpose of one family. So it means it should have a kitchen, it should have a washroom, so it should also have a bedroom, and it should have some other amenities. Then that unit can be considered as a residential unit. I have raised certain doubts, but this doubt in the questions I have not included. I would like to ask, if it is a villa, if it is a gated community having villas, whether that will fall within the meaning of residential complex? How and why? Sir, building, here the building, they said that building should have the units. Here it uses the word buildings having more than one unit. Okay, your one villa, how this can be considered? It can be a building, but whether that villa is it having more than one residential unit? If it is not having more than one residential unit, how that villa can be considered as a building now? Because it uses the word buildings having more than one residential unit. Building or building, it may be a single building, but it should have multiple units. So, how the residential villa can be, villas in a gated community or similar to that, how it can be considered as a residential complex? The exemption is limited to the residential complex. So there is a problem. But currently, the associations or the units may be claiming the exemption of this 7,500, they may be claiming it. But we have to really see whether the villa projects will come within the meaning of this residential complex, which is defined here. And also single unit they have defined. And for your information, in the case of the Macro Marble Projects Limited, the Supreme Court said that this is a Madras Sesta judgment, and then it went up to the Supreme Court. So under the service tax regime, so wherein the villa projects, the service tax department wanted to levy the tax and within the meaning of complexes. There also under the service tax we had the meaning of complex, wherein the complex means having a unit more than one unit. Here also same definition is there. Finally, the Madras Sesta said that residential units, the construction of the villas are not liable for the service tax because it is a single houses. There is no such the intention of the government to levy the service tax for the construction of the individual villas because it is not a residential complexes. So taking clue from the judgment of the Supreme Court in the case of the Macro Marble case, so we cannot say that villas fall within the meaning of this residential complex. No, I have that question in my question. Suppose now you construct this service apartments, okay, and it's all owned by the owners, and then it is given to the another company for running the service apartments. In such cases, the amount whatever we get from the association, whether that will fall within the meaning of this residential complex, because each unit will not have the requirement of the basic amenities to live a family. In service apartment, generally the working people or the students or people, individuals will be living, and that also in one room the 3-4 people will be living it. In such cases, whether such kind of apartments can fit into the meaning of the residential complex, though the Supreme Court judgment in the recently, they said that in the case of Vasudeva Ambarish case, the Supreme Court said that such complexes also can be considered as a residential use. They say it's a residential purposes only. Recently, the 3-4 days ago only the judgment has come. So, but whether that judgment can be applied, Vasudeva Ambarish Tagar case, can that be applied for the limited purpose of this exemption notification is a question of debate. State of West Bengal versus, so meaning of unincorporated body of persons, because this is everywhere there in our definitions, exemptions. So they are using the meaning of the persons. So they are using the word unincorporated persons. In the case of Calcutta Club Limited, Supreme Court said the club or association service tax levy thereon. Body of persons in explanation 3A to section 65B 44 of the what the explanation 3 I already given in my slide. So it says that unincorporated association includes persons who join together in common purpose or action. As case may be refers to different groups. I can have different set of unincorporated association, but this doesn't include companies. This doesn't include companies. Corporates will not be included within the meaning of body of persons. So that's what already concluded by the Supreme Court. But the reason and basis under which under the Calcutta Club Limited they said that no tax is there. It's a different reasons also they are given. But as far as the body of persons, it doesn't include any incorporated companies. What was the exemption entry under the service tax? Because it's very important. What was the entry under history? What was history hours? And what was the entry under service tax? What is the entry under the this central under the GST? There is no change. If you look at these entries, absolutely there is no change. It's a copy paste. If you look at the service, main clause as well as the clause C, services by an unincorporated body or a non-profit entity registered under any law for the time being in force to its own members by way of reimbursement of charges or share of contribution up to an amount of 5,000 rupees. Same, there is no, this is a copy paste. So we have to see how the Supreme Court again it will consider this case. Notification says that, so what is your understanding about this notification or this, or we need not go back to the word, up to an amount of 5,000 rupees per month per member. Suppose it is a 5,100 rupees comes. Whether the GST should be paid on the 100 or should be on the 5,100? It is payable on the 5,000. How many of you want to pay on 5,000? Please raise your hand. So as per the as per your interpretation of this clause, so in the GST it is 7,500. If the amount is 7,600 rupees, in such cases, should I pay the tax on the 7,600 or only on 100? Full. Yeah. Yes. So some people have the opinion that it's on the full amount. That's on 7,600 means once you cross the threshold limit of 7,500, you have to pay on the entire amount. And some people also have the view that it's only over and above the basic limit of 7,500. So this matter has been already ruled by the Madras High Court that it's over and above 7,500 only you have to tax it. Over and above 7,500. So you have the basic exemption limit. For example, if you have under the income tax, for example, you have the exemption limit up to 2,50,000 rupees. And then my slab starts. So once I exceed my limit of basic limit of exemption limit of 2.5 lakhs, I will not pay again, because up to 2.5 lakhs exemption is there. Similar words are there in the exemption notifications. Any government payment up to 5,000 rupees is exempt, because under the any government payment comes under the reverse charge mechanism under the GST. So if you make the payment up to 5,000 rupees, you need not pay. Even though you make the payment to the government, you need not pay the GST up to 5,000 rupees. Once it exceeds in excess of 5,000 rupees is there, then I have to pay the GST on the full amount. So we have to see the notifications, kind of words they are used. Is it up to 5,000 or in excess, or we have to read the each and every notification words we have to use it. But in my view, so the basic exemption of 7,500 is available to us because it uses the word up to. So in this case, you can see the Lumbini Square Owners Association judgment, you can see Madras High Court. However, the appellate authority for the advance rulings, every judgment, almost all the judgment says that, so once you exceed the limit of 7,500, you have to pay the tax on the full amount. Even the circular also against us. So revenue authority, because revenue authorities will generally go based on the circular, because that is binding on them. As far as the assessees are concerned, taxpayers are concerned, circular is not binding on us. So for us the ruling is binding. So the Madras High Court is in our favor, so we can go. Otherwise, circular number 109, it says that, so you have to pay the tax on the entire amount. So since this being the association of members, so association cannot take the risk. So either you have to go for the advance ruling again, or you have to go follow the circular and then fight this matter in the court. Major decisions after the amendment to this section 7(1)AA. So we have discussed enough. So after the amendment, again the one judgment has come. The latest judgment of the Kerala High Court in the case of Indian Medical Association versus Union of India. Order passed on 14/4/2025. So what they said in the judgment? They said that there must, to levy the taxes on RWA, they said that there must be two people to conclude the supply. There must be two people. Without two people, you cannot. Then the changes to the statutes made have lack of legislative competency. The Kerala High Court said that the 7(1)AA, what they made the amendment by way of explanation also, they said that it has got a lack of legislative competency to do this. Definition of the service does not include deemed service, because if you recollect the 7(1)AA, it's a deemed as a supply, they said. It's a deemed. But from where this kind of concept they brought, without amending the definition of the service, because definition of service we have seen, where that word transaction in money we have seen, but the service per se doesn't include deemed services. Service includes only other than goods and includes so and so and so, like that. But doesn't include deemed supply of services. And section 217 clause E and section 7(1)AA with the explanation are held as unconstitutional. Finally the High Court said that whatever the definition of the person, which includes any association of persons, as well as the 71AA, including the explanation, they said that it's unconstitutional as of now. So the matter is before the Supreme Court. Finally, they said no justification for going backward. So there is no permanency. So in fact, I think they have taken a good class in the judgment to the bureaucrat, or the government also. So there is no certainty to the as far as the society is concerned. So we have already one decade over. So again, you are making the retrospective amendment. No. So that's also, they said that it's no justification for retrospective amendment. Now, coming to our recovery and the day-to-day problems. So we will have types of recovery: actual basis, extra water charges, extra repair charges, one-time expenses, etc. So all these collections I will do from the members. The RWA will say that I will collect from on actual basis. Will I get a exemption? So your amount is less than 7,000, or it is the threshold limit of 7,500. But I wanted to, out of the few amounts, I want to cover as on an actual basis. The rest of the amount I will distribute based on the whatever the square foot or this one, I will do it. Whatever the amount I recover on an actual basis, can I get a exemption under the pure agency concept? Because this will be the common question from the this RWA members. In my view, that if you recollect the exemption entry, it says that towards the recovery of the reimbursement of the expenses, and also entity is a non-profit entity. So question of I making the profit itself doesn't arise. So whatever the regular recovery, monthly recovery I am doing it itself is on an actual basis. Of course, many associations are not collecting also on an actual basis, because so they will be compensating or reducing such amounts by way of whatever the interest of the dividend which the association earns out of the deposits which they have kept it in the bank, out of the initial deposits which they collect from the members. So they get some kind of interest or the dividend or any other income. So they give some kind of a adjustment to the monthly or the quarter, whatever the expenses, they do the adjustments. In such cases, so can we say that it is a reimbursement? Yes, of course it is a reimbursement only. So, but since I am already recovering the amount, monthly amount itself is a reimbursement. In my view, that again a special expenditure, a one-time expenditure, recovering as a this one-time expenditure also on an actual basis, though you can do it, it doesn't arise. Whether can I act as a pure agent? In my view, yes, you can act as a pure agent, but there is some problem, because pure agent means what? So there must be a supplier of the service and there must be a recipient of the service. In case of the association of persons, it will have hundreds of members, where the hundreds of members have given an authorization to the RWA that you source this much of activity or the goods or services. There is a problem whenever a common product or the common goods is procured from the third party and then it is charged on an actual basis. So for a multiple the persons, we have a real problem of classifying or taking the advantage of a pure agent. So it will be very difficult. Then the distribution basis, the association will decide the maintenance charges on a area basis and some other basis. Anyway, the Karnataka High Court judgment is on different basis they are given. Specific charges like usage of club, hall and other facilities also will be there. So one-time charges. Suppose you wanted to use the club today for one day, so they will charge you separately for such usage. Now we have few issues. I have raised few issues. So I think we can discuss this one, and I'm sure this will take care of the many issues which you may be having in your mind. So is there a basic exemption limit of 7,500 which we have already discussed? So my view is yes, we have, but we have a risk because of the circular 109. So as per the circular, we have no basic exemption limit once you cross the 7,500 limit. Kindly note that whatever the exemption limit is not applicable, I am saying I am assuming that your turnover is more than 20 lakhs rupees. Okay. So if your turnover is less than 20 lakh rupees, in such cases, even if you recover, even if your monthly charge is more than 7,500 rupees, there is no tax because you are coming within the slab of 20 lakhs rupees exemption. Whether pure agency can be claimed for claiming the reimbursement on actual basis, my view is difficult because of the because of the recipients are multiple recipients. Generally in a pure agent, there must be one supplier, one person who is arranging, and finally one recipient. There must be 2 people, 3 people. So one person should be the recipient, one should be the supplier. In between that, one person will be sourcing and then handing over. So in our cases, in the RWA cases, final recipients will be multiple, hundreds of recipients will be there, and the supplier will be only one person. So that is why it is difficult to convert the transaction into a pure agent basis, so that we cannot take the shelter of this pure agent and get out of the taxes if the amount is more than 7,500 rupees. If association is of a plot owners, whether exemption is available. It's a plot. It's a plotted. So wherein the people have constructed houses or the commercial buildings, or not constructed, or some apartments are there, some are vacants are there, but association is only one. In such cases, whether the our basic exemption of 7,500 is available. Please recollect the exemption entry. It uses the word residential complex. Building or buildings having a residential complex. So plotted owners associations will not come within the exemption. So if you collect even per month 500 rupees also, and your turnover exceeds 20 lakh rupees basic exemption under the GST, you have to pay the taxes. So the exemption is available only for the residential complex. If the association is of gated community, whether exemption is available, so it is a individual villas. So whether exemption is available, so I have discussed that in my view the exemption will not be available because of the Supreme Court judgment. So they said that gated this individual villas are not complexes. In the Marvel case they have already said that. So because of that we have a issue. If the layout has a commercial and residential buildings, whether the exemption will be available for at least residential units. So you have the residential complex as well as the commercial buildings. And individual houses is mixed. So individual also is there, residential complex is also, commercial buildings also there. So can you get the exemption at least for the residential building? In my view, yes, you should get it, because the exemption is for the building or the buildings. So this one part of the building has got this. So to the extent of the residential complex what we have, I should get the exemption. As far as the other part, that's maybe plot or the commercial building or something else, on which whatever the amount I collect, so I will not get the exemption. Taxability of various other incomes like rentals, conducting special ceremonies in the clubhouses for which you collect, is it taxable or not taxable? So exemption is for the reimbursement of the expenses. Okay, this is the income. So there I have some expenditure which I recover. But here by using my facilities I collect some money. So once you cross the limit of 20 lakhs, so these things will be taxed. So exemption will not be there. But if you are within the limit of that exemption, even such incomes also exempt. So this concept is, but in my previous, my brother said that, so when you collect such income from the members, income tax need not be paid, because this is a concept of mutuality. Though it is an income, it's a no tax on this. Yes. Not correct, sir. Whether move in and move out charges are taxable? Yes, same concept. Whatever for the first one we have applied. Whether the limit of 7,500 can be applied if the amount is collected from the tenant. If you raise on the this tenant itself, you say owner says that you don't raise on me, you collect from him.
Issues to the owner. We don't issue to the tenant. We issue only in the system to the owners.
Okay. So if you raise on the owners, the exemption is available. Is GST payable on the amount received from the developer while forming the association's advance maintenance? So he will be collecting the advance maintenance while forming the association. Suppose he transfers around 25 lakh rupees, he transfers. Out of that, around 15 lakhs towards the deposits and 10 lakh rupees towards the advance maintenance, which is still unspent advance maintenance, which he will be handing over to the associations. Whether the association has to pay the tax on this 25 lakh rupees?
Not on the advance, but only on the GST advance, maintenance advance which is collected, he has to pay the GST.
Why?
Because the other one is a deposit, it's not yet notified for expenses, future expenses.
Consideration meaning we have seen that time. The last line what I have said there. Only if it is a refundable deposit will go outside the purview of consideration. We say the GST will look at only this much. Is it refundable or not refundable? It may be corpus.
Simple thing is, even if you make corpus contributions, they are taxable if collected from the members. So you cannot do this. Initial stage, you collect corpus 2 lakhs. Transfer to the new buyer. When it is transferred, it is a transaction between two entities. So it becomes very difficult to justify.
I request you to please use the microphone. Increase the volume.
I have a case where recently I have purchased a flat. They have not collected on the advance of whatever deposit they have collected. Only on the maintenance of 1 year, 12 months, they have collected GST at 18%.
Okay, so you are very lucky. So having not collected, but the definition of the consideration, it excludes only if the amount is refundable, then it is not a consideration. If the amount is not refundable, then it will not, we don't have any concept like capital receipt, revenue receipt, such kind of concept under the GST is not there. So in my view, even that also will be taxable. You have 1 or 2 advance rulings which is in your favor also, wherein they said that the tax is not there on the sinking fund. That's also in the Bangalore advance ruling only. In the case of, I think, on the group company of the Prestige.
Sir, what is the consideration for the refund itself? Now, I can always qualify that, hey, I'm going to refund it after 5 years, 10 years, right? So, where is the duration or determination of something should be refunded within a stipulated period of time?
So there is no such the duration. It can be on 50 years also. So this, as long as it is a refundable and shown in the balance sheet also refundable, so it's a refundable deposit. So in such cases, that is not taxable.
But there is nothing which is qualifying as refundable. We only say it as deposit.
The moment you say also deposit but not refundable, in such cases it will come within the purview of consideration.
Sir, yeah. Sir, once we association get the fund from.
To collect any deposits. It has to be seen in light of Karnataka Apartment Owners Act, which only allows you to collect your share of expenses, but it doesn't allow you to collect deposits. This also must be seen together. It's easy to talk under GST, but if you see the other side, if any member decides to take it up and protest, you have a problem there.
But once you sign the this one bylaws, so once you sign, okay, once you sign and take the membership, and it is like this. Thereafter that to amend the bylaws, you have to see that one, what is the requirements of amendments of bylaws. I have seen recently on the bylaws where it says that 90% of the members have to agree for any such amendment. One of the recent bylaws I have seen. Okay, now 1 or 2 people you raise these objections, then the matter may have to go to the court. For this purpose, so now suppose 2 people raise this objection that you are collecting the deposits which is over and above the amount set that under the Karnataka Owners Associations. Now the matter will go to the court. Finally, you have to recollect the last slide of my brother, as well as our justice this one, the contentment. So by we going to the court, taking this matter to the court, then finally the matter will never be resolved for the next 20 years, 50 years. But what happens, I will say this one, by taking the more deposits, the advantage of taking the deposits, I will tell you what happens. They will invest this money in somewhere in the bank or some other mutual funds and earn the income. And that income, they'll give the adjustment to your monthly expenditure, so that the objective of these members to show that your monthly payout to this association less, One. Secondly, it should not exceed the limit of this 7,500 rupees. For these reasons, many associations will collect these advances only to just to have this relief and not for other reasons.
In reality, nobody collects such deposits to meet monthly expenses. It has always been a case of just trying to avoid GST. You're doing an interim.
Maybe, but we also it also has got other side effect. By taking the deposit and investing in the bank or this one, the income what is earned out of it is a taxable income. Okay, on one hand, I get the relief of this GST maybe by getting the abatement from abatement, but on the other hand, whatever the income I earn out of that, I have to pay the taxes on a maximum marginal rate or whatever the rate. So we have to pay the tax on the income which is earned.
Sir, basically once we collect,
That income, I think, is not set off.
sir,
That I'm not sure because I think he will.
sir, once we collect the, corpus fund or the deposits from the builder, it comes to the association accounts. That time, if we, don't show it as a refundable deposit, maybe I put it as 50 years or 100 years, whatever it is, then when it comes to my hands, it is, GST is applicable in my hands. That's what is the conclusion, sir. How is it?
Sir, you are saying that it is not refundable, no?
Yes.
Once it is not refundable, generally it is a taxable. Okay. Here question is that when you are getting from the developer's hand.
Correct, sir,
Okay.
correct.
Is it taxable again?
Correct, sir.
We advise you that you take a certificate or the letter from the this developer. This money has already suffered tax. I have already collected or the GST or the paid GST to the government on this amount. So that letter you collect it and also you submit or RWA. So RWA, I suggest that you also submit a letter to your jurisdictional GST office saying that this much of amount I have received from the developer on account of at the time of formation of my RWA, and on this already GST has been paid, so that no GST, we are not going to pay the GST on this amount. On that amount I will not pay.
Fine, sir. So, sir, one more question, sir. If, he gives a letter telling that he has paid the GST, should I also collect any proof that he has made that much payment to the government?
If he gives, well and good, because what happens, he is a developer, he will be, there will be no separate amount in this returns will be applicable. Okay. So he will be paying along with this other income. So if you take one letter from him, it should be sufficient. So it should be sufficient. And also then he would have issued an invoice to the individual owner, the unit owners. So while collecting this deposit as well as the advance maintenance rent, they would have given one invoice with the GST invoice. That portion of the document also you have along with this declaration from the owners. I think that will be a complete proof that the tax on this amount has already been paid by him.
So, sir, one last bifurcation in this, sir. If there is landlord and builder both, so is it required for me to collect that from both of them or only the builder is enough?
See, land, how this is a land, because somebody would have purchased from the landowner also.
Yeah, JV. If there is a JV and there is a landlord share and...
Yeah, see, now regarding the deposit is, he also collects the deposits from you.
Correct, sir.
So from him also you take it.
One certificate.
Certificate.
Yeah.
Certificate as well as anyway the invoices given by the owner or the developer will be available with the individual owners. So that copy also can be collected by the association as a proof, so that it safeguards our interest.
Fine, sir. Sir, one last question, sir. Regarding the clubhouse charges, you told, it is under GST because individually it is done. Suppose I, just to, safeguard the interest of the owners or like just to avoid GST, if I try to, after a month, if I get, some 10 bookings, all the 10 bookings, I'll just put it as, in the name of association that this much, all the members put together have booked it, something like that. Will I be able to save something?
But what is the size of your club? Suppose your size of club is around 25 by 25 or the 50 by 50, okay? And association has got 300 members.
Correct.
So how 50 by 50 will accommodate 300 members? Then auditor will come, okay? So we will come and do the audit. So we will say that no, there is some problem in this. So how all the members, what type of function it is? I'll question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
No, correct. At least once this is there means nobody will escape. Function people will escape. But for this they will not escape. finally I will ask one question. For the 10 members, so is actually booked by say 10 members. And sir wanted to show that it is booked by all the members. I want to ask one question. From whom I get the payment? The association from whom payment will be done? All the 300 members or all the 10 members? How? How? So it's a mutuality between 10 and 300. How? Why 10 only contributing to me? No, no. In that association, association is you are using the facility of the association. Okay. So it is not that I collect the money and then all the 10 people will go and go for outing. Now you 10 people collect the money for the function. Okay. And then come and celebrate the party, whatever it is. That's fine. Whatever the money you collected, that is not taxable. Then you have to pay something to the association, which for the facility which you have used it, that is not coming within that. For example, when you are using the service of the flight or the aircraft, okay, for a trip, the money what you 1 lakh you collected is not taxable. But the amount which you have to pay to the aircraft for the flight ticket, that is taxable. So in this example, amount payable to the association is equivalent to the amount payable to the flight. So both are taxable.
So will this help me?
So it's a part of your monthly this one. Then anyway your your bylaws itself says that you can always use your club, no? So why I have to again 50 rupees and so monthly I collect 50 rupees and then I will give them one day this one advance for using this one. Anyway the monthly itself, bylaws itself permits you to use that swimming pool or the club or anything, anyway it allows you to use it. Now for the special function purposes, so you wanted to collect every month 50 rupees and then you want them to use it
Once in a year, so that they don't pay GST on that.
It's a part of, so if it is a part of a monthly reimbursement, that's fine. But if your bylaws itself says that monthly charges of the 50 rupees to be given for the purpose of 1 day usage of the club, in my view, it will not fit into the exemption entry, because exemption entry uses the word reimbursement. This 50 rupees is not towards the reimbursement.
Fine, sir. Thank you, sir.
So next question. So here I have suggested that what should be the...
So one question, sorry. We have seen in certain communities, we provide softwares to communities. We have seen in some communities that they raise a provisional invoice in the beginning, right, to avoid the GST, and then only when people pay, they raise the actual invoices to them, so that they pay GST only on those people who have paid.
Sir,
Is this correct?
I already addressed this point in the time of supply concept. So some people, the people raise only whoever pays the amount, for them they raise the invoice. People are not at all paying, they don't raise the invoice. As and when they pay, so they raise the invoice. For this, your bylaw says that suppose it should be raised on the first of every month. Okay, then we have to adhere to the bylaws provisions. If you don't provide, if you don't comply that bylaws provision, then the GST provisions will come. Within 30 days from the date of the providing services, if you don't raise the invoice, the tax is payable on that. Section 13 comes into the picture. So you have no choice. So either it has to be applied. Whatever the time of supply is applicable, it has to be applied uniformly to all the members. Accrual basis. All are accrual basis. So last 2 slides, sir.
You will have to maximum 5 minutes because
Okay.
the time is really gone by.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Last 2 slides, I am concluding. Whether valuation issue will arise if interest income earned on deposit is adjusted or abated. So far the department has not raised this issue. Okay, so in my view, this should not be questioned because you will get some kind of abatement for the interest earned or the dividend earned from the monthly expenditure. Whether the department will say, no, you are undervaluing to the members, and so that GST is payable on the full value. If the developer holds many unsold units, whether the exemption is available? Now for him also this 7,500 is available to him. If exemption is available for per unit or per member, it's a per unit or the per member. If commercial units are more than 15%, you know that in many complexes we will have commercial as well as residential both. 15% if it is more than case, it's a RREA comes. So like that is there provisions. If the commercial units, because in the front you will have a commercial building or the mall will be there, in the back side we have the residential units. In such cases, whether the exemption will be available for the residential units? Yes, because the exemption is for the residential complex. Residential complex we have seen having in a building more than one unit. So there is no restriction that it should not have the commercial buildings. There is no such restrictions. So exemption will be available for the residential units. Whether exemption is available for RWA of all units given for service apartments. Suppose it's a service apartments and all the owners are given to the to a company for running as a service unit apartment, whether the exemption of 7,500 will be available? No. We have to not look at from that. So whether the unit which is designed or constructed, is it fit to live a family? So if the unit is having say kitchen, toilet, all those things are there, and such things are given for the running a service apartment, still the exemption will be available. If it is available, if it is like only rooms, like a hostels, and then the common toilets, common other things are there, in such a case the exemption in my view will not be available, because it will not fit into the meaning of residential complex. Applicability of the input tax credits, anyway, if you are paying the tax of taxes, then you also get the input tax credit. So I think I will not explain more on that, because it will go to the another big session only as per the input tax is concerned. So with this I am concluding. Hope you all got some knowledge, whatever the knowledge I gained after the commencement of GST, I have shared, and I thank the organizers for this opportunity given. Thank one and all.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable insights. I now request Anil A to present the sapling to sir.